Welcome back to the second video in section 1, lesson 1, where we're looking at adding and subtracting integers using counters. So before we start to add and subtract, we have to look at zero pairs. So since -1 is the opposite of +1, when you add them together, you get 0. So you can think of this as giving someone a cookie, but then immediately taking away. What are they left with? Nothing. So same thing with counters. Combining a positive counter with a negative counter results in 0, and we call this a zero pair. So now let's use zero pairs to help us represent integers in different ways. So we previously saw where we represented +3 using 3 of the yellow counters, and -5 using 5 of the red counters. So now if we are asked to represent +3 in another way, we can use the concept of zero pairs. So let me add on a couple of negative counters. Well, since these are zero pairs and that equals 0, really what I have now is a +1. So if I want to represent +3, I can add on a couple more yellow counters. So here we have a different representation of +3. Now let's look at -5. If I add on some yellow counters and then circle all the zero pairs, what I'm left with then is essentially -1. So what do I need to add on to get -5? Let's add on 4 more red counters, and then we have -5. So now let's look at adding integers. It says we have to add each set of integers using integer counters. So let's follow these steps. Step 1 is to represent each integer. So -5 is represented with 5 red counters, and +4 would be 4 yellow counters. Now I have them lined up like this because in the next step we're going to circle zero pairs. So it's easier to circle zero pairs if you have one on top of the other like this. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 zero pairs. So now the counters that are left over would be the answer. So here I have 1 red counter, which equals -1. Let's do that again now for B. So we'll start by representing each integer using counters. So here I have -3, and here I have -2. Now in this case, there are no zero pairs to circle. So now we'll just count up what we have, which is -5. Let's look at the next one. We have 8 plus -6. So here we have +8, and here we have -6. So here I have 6 zero pairs, leaving me with 2 positive. Or simply you can just write it as 2. Now in D we have 3 numbers to add. So let's start by representing each integer with a counter. Here we have -4. Then we're adding 5 to that. So let's use 5 yellow ones. Now we need to add another negative tile. So right here. So if I circle all the pairs, this time they would all be circled. So now what is left over? 0. So that's how you can add using integer counters. You can now move on to the next video in this lesson.